Hey, folks, it's Rick Wilson. Welcome back to the strategy session on Lincoln Square. We are delighted to have you with us tonight. Stuart and I and the rest of the team, we've been talking all day about this cataclysmic nuclear bomb that went off inside of MAGA when Trump ordered the cover-up of the Epstein materials. And Stuart, I just want to jump right in. The damage keeps coming. It seems like while a few of these people are backing away from it now, most of the MAGA folks are really freaked out by this and are really continuing to be very, very angry and upset.
Yeah, first I got to say, I love your Chiron. Trump plays in the key of a minor. We really should just say that over and over for the next 30 minutes and call it a day. This whole Epstein thing, it's always fascinated me with Trump's world's obsession with it, MAGA's obsession, because the one person that we know was really close to Jeffrey Epstein was Donald Trump. I mean, we know that he flew on his plane. I think we got a graphic here.
Yeah.
That on an Epstein list. There's an Epstein list, for Christ's sake.
Including he had kids on the plane too.
Yeah. He had like 4 numbers for Ivanka, which is
right.
creepy as can be.
And like 25 for Trump.
So you would think that, like, if there was any sort of logic in the world here, what MAGA should be is like, forget about Epstein. But instead, they came to this. I mean, you say this so well. This theory of the universe, and it's a unified theory of the universe that revolves around Epstein.
The presence of a giant pedophile cannibal conspiracy led by Jeffrey Epstein and Hillary Clinton that happens in the basement of a pizza restaurant in D.C. that doesn't have a basement.
Yeah. I mean, I just go on the record and say, I wish life was that interesting, but it's not.
Right? Me too.
It really. So it's on one level, it's just so perfectly MAGA because it's so fundamentally stupid that if they release this, we know for sure that Donald Trump, if they maybe they can try to purge it, but we already have flight logs and everything.
Right.
And, we keep talking about a list, and as you and I were talking earlier, they have this very legalistic definition they seem to be falling back on of a client list, that there isn't a client list. I don't think Prince Andrew thought of himself as a client of Epstein's. I think he thought of him as a buddy of Epstein's.
Right.
This was a circle of powerful men who weren't paying for this. It's not like a prostitution.
Right.
It was a services rendered.
He wasn't taking Venmo from these guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This wasn't like busting the DC, the DC madam or something, we know that they seized a enormous amount of video, pictures, all of this. So what happened to this stuff?
Stuart, I keep reading about how much material the FBI teams who went to the island, who went to his house in Arizona, who went to his house in Manhattan, how much stuff they recovered. And it's not like one thing you could put on Pam Bondi's desk. It's rooms of material. It's storage rooms full of documents and tapes and everything else, which strikes me as problematic at best. There's not a stinker somewhere in there for the Trump people.
Yeah, well, among the things to be thankful for in life is that you are not an FBI that had to go through that stuff. It must be the creepiest stuff imaginable. And look, I mean, we go back to the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of human trafficking.
Right.
So it seems to me, I'm not really an expert on human trafficking, but it seems to me that the essence of trafficking, if trafficking involves someone you traffic to. So otherwise, how is it trafficking? So she seems to be the only person convicted of human trafficking for which there seems to be no one who was trafficking to. And that just sort of strikes me as odd.
It is a weird flip about why is she in jail? Why is she in prison? If this was some victimless crime, why is she in prison?
Yeah.
And I keep threatening to do this, but she is in the prison here in Tallahassee, the Federal Women's Correctional Facility. I'm really tempted to go.
You and Maxwell are neighbors.
I know, we're practically neighbors. I'm really tempted to go down and visit her
Yeah, I hear she has a
Because
yoga
I'm
class.
sure she's got something to say.
Yeah, that would be good. I mean, it really is one of the more extraordinary stories of our time. The people that were involved in this and the way that he got along, and the whole story of Epstein. You don't have to be a conspiracy nut to say, how did a guy end up
Right.
teaching at Dalton, the most
Right.
exclusive prep school in D.C.
Yeah.
without a college degree?
Right. How did he go
And
from being a math teacher at Dalton to handling this, multi-billion-dollar accounts for various incredibly high-value individuals? It is a really creepy, like, there's something under that, like, it's almost cinematic. You almost want to, like, make a mini series out of the damn thing, because he clearly had some hustle and some skills to persuade people to do things.
yeah, there's something. I mean, it's like Ted Bundy. There's something very compelling about the guy. There had to be. Um, and the fact that the guy who hired him's son became Attorney General
Bill
of the
Barr.
United
Yep.
States, Bill Barr. I mean, this is weird stuff. I mean, if you and I were sitting in a writer's room in Hollywood, go, no, look, dude, that's too much. You can't have, like, the guy hires him to teach
Right.
at Dalton, and then his son
Becomes the Attorney General of the United
Attorney
States.
General of the United States, who makes sure that nothing bad happens. Really, I mean, look, or maybe, like, as part of him committing suicide. It's the whole thing is quite cinematically, and how explosive is this?
Yeah,
So, I mean, they
we
keep saying there's Bill Clinton stuff in there. I mean, if there is, we should know this.
we should know, and I've said this a lot. You know what? I don't care who's in these files.
Yeah.
If they're involved with sexually exploiting minors, it should be outed. Even if it's Bill Clinton, I don't care. It does not matter to me at all. As long as, America, and this is a matter of really, I think, compelling public interest. Production guys just said they have a graphic of some of the evidence that was seized. Let's pull that up for a second. Yeah.
Oh.
So this is one page of this massive report. And these CDs, these hard disks, all this stuff. Okay. All these things. Apparently on them are tens of thousands of photographs and hundreds of hours of video. And the fact that they've had this now in the FBI for a couple years is striking to me, because suddenly Trump realized the risk he was at. And suddenly he realized it goes on and on. The guy loved his technology, didn't he?
Yeah. Look, on one level, this is just not very complicated. It's a incredibly creepy, horrible human being who had this ability because he had access to money, which is interesting in itself,
right?
To exploit young women, and involved this woman who also is a fairly compelling figure, I think, Ghislaine Maxwell, who befriended. I mean, if you go back and read how the sort of MO, she would position herself as sort of a buffer between these men and these young women, and they would develop trust with her.
Mm-hmm.
And that led them down this horrible path.
Stuart, that is to me one of the things here. She was an enabler of him, and she comes from this incredibly sort of lurid background too.
Yeah.
Her father, Robert Maxwell, was a big publisher in the UK, a sort of Rupert Murdoch figure, frankly. He died, was assassinated. Nobody knows. Maybe he was drowned.
Lover Epstein maybe was killed himself.
Maybe who knows? And this idea that has taken hold inside of MAGA now, that she might get a pardon, is driving them even more crazy.
Yeah.
And look, she's a hell of a character. And I think in a weird way, I mean, look, Epstein is a degenerate and a sick guy, but a person like Maxwell, who becomes an enabler in these things, to me, that's always like almost more fascinating character than this the person with like serious mental and moral failings. Like the person who is smart enough to play that game to get those young women recruited into his trafficking rings and all that stuff. That to me is fascinating and in a horrible kind of way.
Yeah, I think that there's a degenerate sort of upper class of English aristocracy.
Oh yeah,
that she is very much sort of played into this,
Right.
And I think that her connections to the royals and all of this was very appealing and made.
I think Epstein loved that.
Yeah, it made her seem, I think, to these young women safe. Like,
right.
How dangerous could be someone if they're going to introduce me to Prince Andrew?
Right.
And I think she saw this as sort of fun and a game, and obviously some sort of great sexual thrill she got out of it. And I'm for people doing whatever they want sexually.
Yeah, God bless. Go have fun as long as it doesn't scare
them. Don't do it with young women that you're exploiting.
Right. Don't do it with minors or farm animals. Just that. Other than that, knock yourself out.
We even sanitize this by referring to them as young women. These are children.
Children.
Yeah. And that this went on for so long, and the fact that there was this case in Florida, and
right. While Pam Bondi was AG.
And he got off.
Yep.
It's really, really evil. And look, this was Donald Trump's world. I mean, everybody who lived in New York knew this about Donald Trump. He talked about it.
Right. He talked about
where
how
did he meet his wife? He met his wife at the Kit Kat Club.
Right. He told Michael Wolff that the first time he had sex with Melania was on Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Express jet.
Yeah. And look, what does he say when Maxwell's arrested? I wish her well.
I wish her well. Yeah, we made an ad about that in 2020. I remember that. But Stuart, I mean, this thing has divided the MAGA folks so badly. Yeah. I mean, you got Laura Loomer and Benny Johnson and Charlie Kirk all going 6s and 7s. They're all going each which way. Now, Charlie Kirk got a phone call from Donald Trump. He spent the weekend screaming at the top of his lungs that all the data has to come out and the Epstein cover-up is terrible. Bondi has to go. He gets a phone call from Trump, and this week he completely flips. We have that clip.
Yeah, well, I guess he was worried about being deported along with Rosie O'Donnell. They both end up on the same plane in shackles, being sent to
Gitmo
location.
I think we have a Charlie talking Kirk. About Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend. So if you guys want to see my commentary on it, that's fine.
I mean,
I'm going to trust my friends in the government, said MAGA.
How is it that we were involved in a once serious party? At least I think it was okay to call it serious. And now serious. Charlie Kirk is a major figure in the Republican Party. This weird guy that headed up college Republicans and didn't go to college.
Right.
And he's become this.
And
all weirdos.
But all these people are fighting in such a way. Like, I have never seen it before. We talked about this yesterday on one of our calls, on our staff call. Nothing has divided MAGA like this in 10 years. Yeah. Nothing. Not even January 6th. There is a rebellion going on Trump's Truth Social page. He got ratioed, folks. And if you're not familiar with what ratioing is, it's when you get more replies than you get likes. And I read through, God save me, several hundred of those replies to Trump about stop talking about Epstein, and people, his own people on Truth Social, which is a pretty narrowly selected group of Trump fans.
It's a self-selecting group there.
They're furious. I read hundreds of these comments, and they are, sir, I love you. I voted for you, but you've betrayed me. Sir, they love calling him sir, which he loves too, obviously. But they were so mad. They're so pissed off. They're so betrayed. And I don't think it's gonna solve itself quickly, especially when you still have Laura Loomer out there beating the drum. Let's bring that up if we have that. And Benny Johnson, who is similarly consequential in the MAGA media ecosystem.
a guy being paid through a middle person by the Russians.
Right. A guy who was getting $400,000 a month from the Russians. By the way, Stuart, if that deal comes along, I will take a $400,000 a month deal. Even if to dust off my Russian.
These are, I think, here's the question. So say someone in the Justice Department leaks some of this.
Right.
And we find out that Donald Trump, what is apparent, he was very close to Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
And hung out with him. He's a guy who has a long history of being attracted to much younger women,
including his own daughter.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy I thought the Model UN was like Model Week in New York, and he's a guy who's talked in public about dating his daughter,
right?
Which is it's creepy as fuck, and of course he hung out with Epstein,
of course,
and we have there's plenty of pictures of it. So here's the question: if this came out and you found out that Donald Trump was being provided young women by Epstein and Maxwell, what would MAGA do? Would they accept it? Would this be finally something that breaks them?
I think a percentage of them will accept it, or they'll think it's a lie. They'll think it's made up, deep state, which is why Trump said, "Oh, those files were written by Obama and the Clintons."
Yeah.
By the way, just folks, just so you all know, so you're equipped with this data, those files were turned over to the FBI during Donald Trump's administration. Barack Obama never had any access to it. I don't think he has a secret key to the Justice Department to go in and alter the files. But yeah, I mean, we're at a point now where, excuse me, where the Lincoln Project has done what we do. Let's roll an ad. This is an exclusive preview for you guys here on the subscriber chat and on the subscriber view. This is an exclusive preview.
He played you for a sucker. He knew you wanted to know the truth about the Epstein list.
We need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
So you voted for Donald Trump. How's that working out?
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Elon demanded you release the Epstein files. The next day, you send ICE into Los Angeles. Trump thinks you're stupid. He can distract you. Trump's old friend, Ghislaine Maxwell, got 20 years for child sex trafficking.
I just wish her well, frankly.
20 years for child sex trafficking. But there's no record of who she trafficked the children to? Really? Donald Trump is president of the United States. If he wanted you to see the Epstein list, he'd release it. But he's not.
I don't know about Epstein so much. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
He played you for a sucker. MAGA, you gonna just shut up and fall in line like all the rest? Really?
And when I say
the question, right? I mean, is MAGA just going to shut up and fall in line?
See, I don't think they are. I think there's a part of the MAGA influencer class that built their brand in part around Epstein and around the whole QAnon kind of inflected conspiracy theory stuff, the missing children thing, all that. I think they built their brand around that. I think they're locked into that in a big way. And I don't think it's easy for them to walk away from it. Just look what happened to Charlie Kirk. He had a massive blowback from what he said. I'm just done talking about Epstein. Massive blowback on his socials. He also, like a lot of other MAGAs, about 24 hours ago, you started seeing this talking point pop up from the Trump war room and the Trump people that said, the message now is Biden's auto pen. We have to undo all Biden's pardons because the corrupt Biden auto pen scandal. So I looked on Google search this morning, and the Epstein scandal bar is way up here. And the auto pen scandal, or the auto pen search bar, is almost indistinguishable from background noise. Like they're not succeeding in changing the subject.
The lurid appeal of auto pens versus child sex trafficking I'm gonna not go with the auto pin on that.
Right. I think the auto pin is a little less sexy
Yeah.
as a news hook in MAGA world.
Yeah.
And look, you've got all these guys who are trying to play this out as a deep state thing that Trump is, or Bondi is somehow captured by the deep state. If Trump told Bondi to release this stuff, it would be out there on a U-Haul being delivered to the White House right now.
Yeah.
And
I mean, look,
Occam's razor, there's their bullshit letter they sent, which is just, which went over in MAGA world like a wet fart. But all of it comes down, I think, Stuart, to something broke in their heads about this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is the other part that's freaking MAGA out, and frankly, a lot of non-MAGA people as well. Like, they put out an edited videotape of the last day or the last hours of Jeffrey Epstein that shows all the highlights of it having been edited in Adobe Premiere and things moved around and changed. That's not a really good look. That was not bright of them. And yes, they increased its contrast, but the full raw and enhanced. Folks, even the raw video apparently shows signs of having been edited. This is not smart. Cover-ups really don't ever work, right, Stuart? I mean, they really fall apart in almost every administration.
Yeah, and I think there's a fact that could calculate in this. Donald Trump is only going to be around for a very limited time here as president of the United States, and these people who have these mass followings now, what are they going to do if they lose that audience? Because they're going to. This is their business. This would be like having your law license taken away if you're a lawyer, or if you're a stockbroker, because once they break that trust with these people, then look, they don't have any special skills or any special appeal except outrage. And by making people feel that what they feel is validated. So anybody else can do that. There's nothing special about these. They're not like athletes or musicians or writers. They don't have a particular talent. No,
they found a grift with Donald Trump. And here's one of the things I think that is interesting about that. It's a lesson that Fox has had to learn. When Fox took a baby step or two away from Trump, their audience ran to Newsmax and OAN and online sources and YouTube channels. And I think in a lot of ways, the reason these folks have not abandoned the Epstein story at the risk of Trump being angry with them is that they know there are other sources out there, other influencers out there, other commentators out there who will stick with the Epstein story. And they're afraid of losing that juice in a big way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We know from the Dominion lawsuit that they were very worried about losing audience to Newsmax. And they used that to justify saying what they knew wasn't true, which was, that Donald Trump lost the election.
I think, Stuart, we are going to see this play out in the next couple of weeks. In a way, look, I think Bongino is checked out already. I don't think he's quit as of. I've been writing all day today, so I haven't really had my head in the social game. I think he is checked out. He doesn't want to lose his giant podcast audience, which he has a bit. He had Dan Bongino, for all that he's an idiot, had a very successful podcast. I would love his numbers. Folks, tune into the Lincoln Project podcast with me, your host, Rick Wilson. But he doesn't want to lose that audience because that was a job that was paying him a couple $1 million a year, not $177,500 as the maximum salary in the government is right now. And so I think he's pretty much done. Bondi is now hated by some of the biggest influencers in the party who aren't giving that up. She's going to be on terribly pressured. And look, this is a guy, again, like I said, folks, Jeffrey Epstein knew a lot of people. There's Bill Clinton with Jeffrey Epstein looking pretty casual. It doesn't matter who's on the list or who's in the materials. And don't buy that very narrow semantic argument that says There's no Epstein client file. They made that up in their heads. There's no Epstein black book. They made that up in their heads. There are Epstein materials that are relevant to this, that Donald Trump now understands what is in those materials. And that, Stuart, I just came up with this theory of the case in my brain just now. I think it's why it took this long. I think that he got sworn in, and they went and they had some teams of lawyers start going through this stuff. And the lawyer said, oh, shit, there's Donald.
Yeah.
And that's when Bondi got the phone call from Susie Wiles that said, shut it down.
Yeah, look, I think that there's something that's so fundamentally at the essence of Trump in this whole thing, that it's about this, weird, creepy guy who in many ways is like just sort of boringly, banally evil, that preys on young women. And, that we are able in the party that once said character counts to put all this stuff aside. Okay, he was paying off, a porn star that he had sex with 4 months after his son was born. Actually, I tweeted about that recently and said that it was 2 months after, and I was corrected. The point out that it was 4 months
makes it all better.
I stand corrected. The guy had sex with a porn star. They paid off 4 months, not 2 months after his youngest son was born. But there's something so fundamentally evil about Trumpism that this is just. And what more evil of kind of figure could you be than Maxwell and Epstein? And Trump is involved in that. It's just something about it. It's like extremist movements just become more extreme. They become more demanding a purity test. The Red Guard didn't end because there was like a moderate faction of the Red Guard. It becomes so. And look, if this was in China, and this is very much like China, they would just erase the person, which is basically what Trump is trying to do.
That is what Trump has ordered Bondi to do, is to erase this story, to shred or destroy or hide this evidence forever. And look, I even at this moment, I fear that the chain of custody and the evidence has already been polluted or redacted. I would not in any way put it past these people to have removed incriminating evidence about Trump from the Epstein materials that the DOJ has. Not in the slightest would I put it past them. Pam Bondi is not a great attorney, but she is very obedient, and I suspect that we're going to find out more about the reason she fired the FBI's chief ethics or DOJ's chief ethics attorney this week, because it struck me as not a coincidence that the chief ethics lawyer at DOJ is fired the week Pam Bondi begins a sweeping cover-up of this Epstein material. I mean, that to me is folks, Watergate was a 2-bit conspiracy. And as they said, these weren't bright guys and things got out of hand. This makes the Watergate conspirators look like a team of people from Mensa, a team of genius scientists from Stanford who came together in a daring heist. These people are dumber than a bag of dirt. Dan Bongino, I have met ham sandwiches smarter than Dan Bongino. Kash Patel is a grifty little weirdo. Pam Bondi, I know Pam Bondi. I know her from Florida. She is not a bright person. She's good on camera. She's always been good on camera. She's presentable, as they say down south. But she is obedient, and they're all going to do whatever Trump tells them. And they're going to think, well, I could shred these documents because he'll pardon me later. Man, if I were the Democrats, as John Ossoff did this weekend, which I thought was brilliant, I would be out there right now like, I'm going to investigate the shit out of this. We're going to find out about the missing children. We're going to find out about the sexual abuse. We're going to find out about the pedophiles, no matter where it leads us, including Bill Clinton.
Yeah. Look, that's what you have to be if you're a Democrat now.
Yep.
You can't let the specter of Clinton.
No.
And look, I work for Bob Dole against Clinton. There's creepy aspects of Bill Clinton that we should not. Things can be true. I think he ended up having a very successful presidency, but there's an element of him, particularly involving women. If you go back and you look at the stuff that they said about Jennifer Flowers.
Right.
And I mean, even if you go back and look at War Room, it's stuff
Sure.
that in a post-Me Too movement would just never be said.
Oh,
the way
God.
they denigrated these women.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they did the classic nut or a slut defense on. And look, Bill Clinton was a chronic adulterer. This is not a secret, and it's not a political judgment on him. This was. And there were ways that his people handled it that were creepy. But in this case, the Republicans have a president who they still support, especially elected Republicans, by the way, and they know this stuff. This is not a secret. It is not a secret to them that he was buddies with Jeffrey Epstein. It is not a secret that there is a corpus of material that could be incriminating. And as I like to say, Occam's razor is sharp and true. There is a reason he has ordered Bondi to cover this up. And I strongly suspect, like I said, that they went in there, they started looking through this stuff, and they went, oh, shit. And folks, we're going to stay on this at Lincoln Square and at the Lincoln Project for two reasons. One, this is a break in the armor of Trump. It is a rare moment where Donald Trump's power over his base is shattered. It is a rare moment where Donald Trump's control of the agenda and the message and the narrative is shattered. And it is right now broken. He is flailing. He is in trouble. And Stuart, I'll get a couple final thoughts from you on this because, I mean, I think Trump right now, this is probably the worst moment of any time he's been in office.
Yeah, you can visibly see Trump panicking.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that thought that he was untouchable.
Yep.
And the stuff that's the tragedy of having a guy who tries to overthrow the government, doesn't accept, and he still gets reelected.
Right.
That guy is going to think that he can get away with anything.
Sure.
And the stuff that they're doing in the government now, which is tremendously evil. Oh. And I think a lot of it is illegal. I think the Supreme Court has become this sort of shameful enabler of this stuff.
Yep.
And, whether or not it's Marco Rubio being complicit in helping what is going to be, in essence, the murder of millions of children, the killing of USAID, what they're doing with ICE. And he's getting away with all of that. And so this comes up, and it's like a hand from the grave reaching up. Like, this is a guy who, spent years at Studio 54, coked out of his mind, who, had sex with an endless number of models, who thought church was a place you go every 10 years or so to marry a model, who becomes the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And so he thought he could get away with it all. And, on some lizard level of his brain, he's always been afraid of this.
Right.
Because he knows what's there. And he knows what he did with Epstein. And he knows what he did with Maxwell.
Yep.
And, that's bad stuff.
Donald Trump learned from at the foot of Roy Cohn about deny, deny, deny.
Yep.
But at a certain point, that deny has just broken down for him. Just saying, oh, that creep where there are hundreds of photographs of you hanging out with that creep. Because, I knew a lot of Palm Beach folks. One part of my practice before, I went against Trump and lost all my corporate clients. One part of my practice, I represented a bunch of incredibly wealthy individuals in Palm Beach County for their political work. And I heard stuff about Trump and Epstein in the 90s down there. I heard stuff about Limbaugh and Epstein and Trump and all this whole sort of like $10,000 a night hookers and all that stuff. And I never focused on it that closely because I didn't really care about Trump at the time. I didn't really care about Epstein at the time. But none of this was a secret in Palm Beach in New York, folks. None of it was a secret. And if Pam Bondi has her way, it will be a secret. If Democrats retake Congress, I think this is going to make the Watergate hearings look like child's play, because they are right now engaged in covering up the sexual abuse of young girls and young women at scale to protect Donald Trump politically. And like I said, folks, Lincoln Square is not going to let up on this. Lincoln Project's not going to let up on this. We're going to keep telling you the truth about what we see it's going on and about the impact it's having on MAGA. So with that, I also want to say to everybody, join Lincoln Square. Join the Lincoln Project's, this is the Lincoln Project's media arm. We have built this so that you can get news, you can get information, you can get truth that isn't going to be persuaded by Donald Trump calling the editor-in-chief of a newspaper or a cable network and screaming at them and then threatening and intimidating them.
We're not worried about our impending merger being affected by the Justice Department.
No.
But we are fearless there.
Yeah, but look, he can't shake this fury. He can't shake this guilt. You see him, folks. He looks racked with anxiety. Yeah. I don't think Trump feels guilt like normal humans do because he's kind of a sociopath. Yeah. But he has fear of losing things. He has fear of his image being beaten up. And I really, really believe that we've got to keep the pedal to the metal on this. Folks, this ad releases tomorrow, the one you saw here on the show tonight. We're going to run it one more time as we go out in a minute. But stay tuned for that ad to be released widely tomorrow. And then we've got another one coming later in the week that I promise you will like. It is as hard a Lincoln Project hit as you're ever going to see. And it was an interesting story how it got developed, which we will never tell in public. So with that, folks, I want to thank you all for watching the strategy session with me and Stuart. Stuart, thank you so much. I know it is late where you are, so we're gonna wrap it up here tonight.
Yeah, I'll just say, look, everybody, you should subscribe to Lincoln Project. If you're listening to this, you are a subscriber. At some point, it'll be released to other people. But get your friends to join.
Yeah,
it's the only way to do this. And for God's
sake,
sake,
we've been growing fast, folks, and it's all about you guys helping spread the word.
It really has exploded. And watch Maya May's show. Watch Bobby Jones' show. Anchor Watch. We've got some tremendous voices out there. Listen to that Trippy Show podcast, Enemies List. This is how we can change things. No one is going to save us but ourselves.
That's it.
So
that's it. All right, folks, we're going to play that ad one more time, and we will see you next week.
Hey, MAGA, he played you for a sucker. He knew you wanted to know the truth about the Epstein list.
We need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
So you voted for Donald Trump. How's that working out?
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Elon demanded you release the Epstein files. The next day, you sent ICE into Los Angeles. Trump thinks you're stupid. He can distract you. Trump's old friend, Ghislaine Maxwell, got 20 years for child sex trafficking.
I just wish her well, frankly.
20 years for child sex trafficking. But there's no record of who she trafficked the children to? Really? Donald Trump is president of the United States. If he wanted you to see the Epstein list, he'd release it. But he's not.
I don't know about Epstein so much. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
He played you for a sucker. MAGA, you gonna just shut up and fall in line like all the rest? Really?